we're also here today for the video game film panel. Like, I really wish I named it something that could roll off the tongue a little easier, other than video game film panel. It's a lot of vowels and everything. But today we are going to share with each of the panelists here, not me, but each of the panelists here. We're gonna share their favorite video game films and their most disappointing one. It doesn't mean that the film was terrible or anything, because I'm pretty sure for the modern audience they probably do like the film. But for us being gamers and everything, there is something that the filmmakers could have done to make us feel a little disheartened with the way how they handled the source material of the subject. That it's like, oh, why would you have done that? Like, I would have done this a hell of a lot differently, and try to keep a little bit more of the core. If the answers aren't Silent Hill or Resident Evil, I'm out. Oh my god. I think she sniffed one out. No, wait, I had to behave. Oh my god. But our first one. So we're actually going to start with the most with the disappointing films. We're going to start with that one for reasons you guys will find out later on in this video. But first, we're going to do Tommy's disappointing film. Tommy, what you got for us? What is your disappointing video game film?
Okay, so for disappointing video game film, I was...
Your mic muted.
Yeah, you cut out, Tommy.
Oh, man.
Wait.
There we go. We heard you.
Okay. I guess I just wasn't speaking loud enough. So for my film, I was torn actually between two. I was torn between Monster Hunter and the eventual pick, but I went with my actual disappointment pick, which is Final Fantasy Spirits Within, because I knew from the jump that Monster Hunter was not going to be good. I actually had hope for Final Fantasy. Reason being is just, well, Final Fantasy is one of my favorite video game series of all time. I played the original Final Fantasy IV, which is still within my top 5 games of all time, back when it was called Final Fantasy II on the SNES. So that's... series holds a special place in my heart. And then when I get into this movie, there's just so much disappointment going on with it. I would say to get a good out of the way, I still think a lot of the CG in the movie holds up well to this day. A lot of it still looks very good, even given the time frame it was released in. But that it's really just like the epitome of a shiny turd to me, because the story is just so. Like, I can tell they took a lot of inspirations from movies like Aliens and Event Horizon, and maybe an Event, and we were talking about this before the stream. There's kind of the same influences that Dead Space took on, with a lot of its more sci-fi themes. But the problem is also what causes that disappointment is the thing that has always stuck to me about Final Fantasy is it's always been this nice blend of science fiction and fantasy. And it went, and it's not that entirely sci-fi Final Fantasy or entirely fantasy Final Fantasy was a bad thing, but you definitely lose something when you lean way more into one territory. I think that's also why I think it's also one of the big reasons why I hate Final Fantasy 13 so much. But
that was the time travel one, right?
That was Final Fantasy 13 too. They had a lot. There was all sorts of. They made 3 games in the Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 13 was its own series essentially. But we're getting off topic. But the story was just not very well written as far as like the dialogue's concerned. Like, it has a lot of time where there's just so much exposition being written in, and there's so much things that happen off screen that are integral to the story, and it's just like, oh, we did this, or look what I have now, and I'm like, when did this happen? Like, you're breaking one of the fundamental rules of visual storytelling, which is show don't tell. And the voice acting, even though the cast is amazing on here, like you look at, or you know, you look at it, it's a very solid cast. You know, you got people like Alec Baldwin, Donald Sutherland, and you would
Ming Na
think that would
Wen, James Woods, Ving Rhames, Steve Buscemi, and even Perry Giplin. They had Roz from Frasier in this.
right? Like there's like you would
Yeah,
think with a cast like that, it would be just a home run, but no one really brings in a very good performance. The all the voice acting is just wooden, and the dialogue does nothing to help because again, we get a lot of times with Wen Ma who's just giving again just wooden exposition, just no emotion behind it, and it really just does not help with the investment in wanting to see this story come to a conclusion. Like I had to rewatch this a couple of times because there's multiple times where I was watching this movie like throughout its release or ever since it's released that I just completely checked out.
I feel that. I feel that. I've had some. I've had some video game films like that, and really, it's funny the way you describe it. So the director, this is Hironobu Sakaguchi. Um, and the way you describe it, it's all like, are we talking about Final Fantasy or are we talking about a Uwe Boll film? You know, like
Right?
House of the Dead, Scratch it. Blood Rain was somewhat entertaining. There were some moments I did check out, but you know, hey Hammonds, what's up? But yeah, it sounds like you just described an Uwe Boll film, and that's very disheartening because I've only seen clips of Final Fantasy: The Spirit Within, and it looks like it tries to hang a lot heavily like on the Final Fantasy VII look, kinda. But like they removed, I think, all sense of magic. I don't think there's like a single ounce of magic. It's just straight science
Mm-hmm.
fiction and everything. And so I don't know
Exactly.
the director's line of work. I didn't get a chance to actually look that up, but yeah, it's very disheartening, and I don't know if I really want to check out the rest of the director's actual filmography now. It's like if this is like kind of like what he had, it's like I don't know what else he could have done and everything that would
Well, that's
make.
the thing with Sakaguchi is he's not really a film director. He's
Oh, really?
mostly no. He's the creator of Final Fantasy, and yeah, he's made Final Fantasy, and he was the director of like the first like I think 6 or 7 Final. Actually, no, he was the director for like the first 6 games,
Uh huh.
and well, and he's been very heavily involved with all the other games that have come out, either like in a producer role or something like that.
What the
But
fuck happened?
yeah, the only film he has to his credit is The Spirits Within. So it's you have a story that also very much goes hand in hand with what we're seeing here. Like it's someone who is trying to translate the art of directing a video game into a movie, and those are two entirely different
Yeah.
uh, skill sets.
No, I mean, I watched this film when it came out like 20 years ago, and I never played a Final Fantasy game before in my life. I still haven't played any. So, I mean, I had nothing to base it off of. And I remember being like very underwhelmed, just like and confused by the entire story. Is this movie like related or like adapted from a specific Final Fantasy game? Or like is this just like an entirely new story? Like, how
Yeah,
closely does this resemble the games it's supposed to be adapted from?
that's how I felt too, actually. But I play Final Fantasy, so I resonate with the whole oh man, what
Right.
is this?
Right next to learning from Tommy that this is essentially the director for the Final Fantasy games. That's a shocker. The one I definitely cannot sit there and stand is that you've never played a Final Fantasy game, Chris. That hurts.
I mean,
You gotta play my favorite one because it was the one that made me really fall in love with Final Fantasy, and I believe that was 4, the one where you had Kefka as the villain.
No, no,
And
no, that's 6.
6, so he ended high, pretty damn good on directing the best one. Um,
Yeah,
so
because afterwards he stuck with the series until Final Fantasy X.
oh, you're going out.
you're cut out.
Sorry, so he stuck with the series until Final Fantasy X and 10-2 game. He was like a producer. He wasn't like involved in the directing aspect of it. So
Interesting.
it's you, and you, that's the thing that really gets me though, is like you would think like having the creator of this series that's so heavily beloved, and if you know the history of Final Fantasy, like the original Final Fantasy was his last shot. That's why he named it Final Fantasy. It was his
Yeah.
last to make a game. And you would think that something that would be this close to his heart, he would like really try to knock it out of the park with the directing. And obviously with the acting part, that might be, more of a dubbing issue, but it
Probably.
doesn't affect the fact that the story itself like doesn't really do like I don't even know if you got actors who were invested in giving a good performance if they could even save this movie.
I mean, there could
Yeah.
have been a disconnect between like, he's a Japanese director, right? So like
Mhm.
you're trying to direct people who don't speak Japanese, and maybe there could have been a disconnect or like some
Mhm.
like bad line delivery that he couldn't like really critique, or maybe he wasn't even in the ADR room like with them, just
Well, I do know that back then, with it depended on what studio that you were in. Sometimes, like the director will only give you like a few marks and everything, but like most of the time, there was like a I guess you would kind of say like a voice director. That while the director more or less focused on the visuals, it was the voice director that worked more on the lines.
yeah.
But usually those two would collaborate, and it's like, hey, I want them to get this because this is the vision that we're going for. So obviously it definitely sounds like a lot of lost in translation with this is what I want versus this is what I got and everything, because Ming-Na Wen's not Japanese, right? She's I don't know,
I think.
is she Chinese? I don't want to say. um
Um, what is her background?
yeah, like
Wing,
to me, and it's sad
Wing,
because Ming-Na is a really great voice actress, because a lot of us grew up listening to her as Fa Mulan, you know.
yeah.
So to have it where she didn't pack a great voice performance, like, and that really hurts. But uh
Hmm.
to get ready to move forward, Chris, you need to play Final Fantasy 6. That's the best Final Fantasy game out there. Final Fantasy 7 is fucking overrated.
I
6
actually
still
bought
needs its remake.
Final Fantasy VII on my PS4 like 5 years ago when it released, and I still haven't even touched it.
I have the games on my Steam wish list and everything of like, I really want to go back and I really want to play
I
Final Fantasy 6, because my memory corrupted halfway through, like right when Kefka had betrayed the Emperor, and I'm all like, oh, what the hell? I was like, I thought I was at the end of the game, and he's like, no, this is
oh man,
the other half of the game. And I was like, ah, and so
yeah. I actually managed to pick up a couple of them because they released over the Steam sale. They released or they had the DS re-releases, so the 3D remakes of 3 and 4. And again, 4 is my favorite, so I'm gonna need to go back and play that soon
I'll have to check
after I
those out
finish
too.
Baldur's Gate.
I need to finish that. I felt like I let Nox down whenever I uninstalled it, but that's because I burned myself out on Baldur's Gate.
That's okay. I forgive you.
I would
I'm almost
waste
done.
8 hours of my day, and I was like, God damn it.
I'm almost done. I'm on Act 3.
That's like a whole nother half of the game, though. That's what it feels like to me. Act 3 has like so much in there. But moving forward to our next film, Chris is going to take this one away. This one I fucking avoided like the plague, like COVID. So Chris is going to inform us, because I've never seen this movie. Chris,
You
what's
never
your
seen
pick?
the Assassin's Creed movie?
No.
Oh
You have to
God,
see it.
I saw it
Oh
too.
my god, no.
Ah, yeah.
No.
I had so much hype because I love the Assassin's Creed games. Like they
Mm-hmm.
are so fun. Just like running around like Rome and like just London and stuff and France, man. Those games were a blast. So like when they took the helm and creating the story, like they produced this themselves, I think, Ubisoft, and
Yeah.
like they came up with the story on their own, and it was set in Spain. We'd never seen that before, and it was going to follow a brand new main character because Desmond had died in the games, and we were going to follow this new guy. And they just they dropped the ball so hard, and they focused more on like the modern day stuff and like trying to fill out exposition and trying to explain this world and story to new people, I guess, to a new audience, when like this should have just been more for like fans of the game,
Mm-hmm.
and like you didn't need to explain stuff like in such detail. And they had such a different weird thing with the animus. Like it's a 3D animus now, and he's moving around. Like I get why they did that. It's like more
Visual
cinematic,
style,
like,
yeah.
yeah, it's more visual and stuff. But it's just like I didn't give a crap about either timeline. Like I didn't care about the Spain story. I didn't care about the main guy in the modern day. Like they made him sound like a cool dude. Like oh, he's like a former criminal, and like all these dudes are trapped in this facility, and they're slowly learning to like become assassins and stuff. And man, they just had a good cast too. They had
Michael Fassbender,
Michael
Jeremy Irons,
Fassbender.
Brendan Gleeson.
yeah, Jeremy Irons, like best bad guy in cinematic history, but like one of the top ones. And
And
just
5 years after this, Brendan Gleeson, I think, won, was it Best Actor or Supporting Actor for the Banshees of Inisherin? That was 2021, 2020, I believe so. So it's funny, he, like, I grew up watching his work from, like, 28 Days Later. Like, that was, like, a heartbreaking role that he did. And then, like, again, I'd seen clips of this, and I just, like, ugh. I didn't like it. I didn't like it whatsoever. It feels the same way like the Final Fantasy thing. It's like you have a cast of really great actors. I wouldn't say an ensemble like Final Fantasy, but for me, this just, this had like the stench of ick really bad.
yeah.
There's a huge
Oh.
disconnect for sure. I think that's what a lot of it had.
But I feel like also too with the first, is it the first 3 games that tell Desmond's story?
Yeah, the
It's
first three.
Yeah,
technically the
see, I
first
didn't
5
give a shit
games.
about Desmond. I did not care about
Hey,
I liked it a little bit more
Yeah.
when they started doing the stuff like with the Victorians where you had the 2 twins. I liked it better when it was that, and I kind of felt like the series should have been like that. But
yeah, it should have been like set
Yeah.
in the time period
y-
and telling those stories.
yeah,
And not worrying about the modern day stuff. 'Cause
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
modern day stuff is just like kind of on the
No,
back burner. of
no
the
one
game.
has ever cared about the modern day stuff in a Assassin's Creed game. It's all
And you don't even like.
Yeah.
I haven't played the last 3 games. I don't know where the modern day stuff is going because like they just barely touched on it in like Syndicate and Unity
yeah.
and the other like
Oh yeah,
spin-off.
the other ones. Yeah.
yeah. Like
Wasn't
I
Unity the terrible one where like it was so bad that was the one where you play co-op with 4 people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was set
Yeah.
in France. Like it looked great, but
Mhm.
just the story
theory.
sucked. The main characters were boring, and just I don't know who is writing these games now, but they've kind of like just dropped
It's
the ball.
Ubisoft. It's a hit and miss.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah.
it was just really disappointing because it felt like filler that they didn't care about. Like,
Yeah.
they should have used this opportunity to show, oh, this is how cool like their world is fighting Templars in Spain in the 1500s. But no, they kept going back and forth, and I just was so disappointed by that movie.
I do remember seeing in the trailer too the way how the Animus looked. I got a Portal vibe from it. I was waiting for like GLaDOS to come out because like the way how it pick him up.
Oh god.
I got that too, and I was like, wait, is this Assassin's Creed movie or is this Portal and everything? So I kind of got that vibe, and I'm sitting here. It's like you could have easily just did what the Animus actually was in the game. You could have just did that, and you could have just like, I mean, I think there's like an artistic way that you could have done it. Like essentially, the Animus to me looked like almost like a CAT scan minus the big giant loud motherfucking thing that sounds like a dryer where someone like threw some like boots or whatever in there, and then like you hear the boom boom boom. And but yeah, like seeing this, like at first some of the trailer looked good. I was like, this is interesting, but I felt like Assassin's Creed, the games themselves were stronger when they did not rely on modern. Like I really love the Origins where they're in Egypt, Odyssey there's Odyssey, and then there's the Vikings, and then what's the new one, Mirage, where
Yeah.
it's
they're
like
back in, like
when they do that stuff, that to me is when Assassin's Creed is good. And I felt like they could have done this, but at a certain point, I kind of feel like then probably some critics would sit there and say, oh, this is reminiscent of another video game adaptation, Prince of Persia.
Same company.
Oh, really? Okay, okay.
Well, I mean,
I
Ubisoft
actually
makes the
hate
Prince
that
of
one.
Persia games, and a lot of people basically say that the original Assassin's Creed was a spiritual successor, gameplay-wise, to the Prince of Persia games, or just kind of had like that same vibe, this sort of historical action game that involved a lot of like unique platforming challenges and combat, things like that.
Ah, sweet. To be honest, I have not played a Prince of Persia game since I think it was the Sands of Times, and that was Walmart's demo. Whenever, like back then, where you could play the demos at Walmart and get that crick in your neck for looking up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's definitely it. So we are gonna move on because the farther we get away from that ick, the better. I'm sorry, Chris. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, if they ever give it a second chance, like I hope they learn from their mistakes. Like,
I wish they do something more very close to like, I don't know, I guess you would call it like the latter trilogy where you had Egypt, Valhalla, and Odyssey. I felt like those were where they were strongest. And really those games are super big, so really you could just pluck one character out and just tell their story through that directive. And, you know, people, maybe some normal filmmakers be like, oh, I don't understand it. I was like, oh, well, you have to play the game to understand that this guy over here is actually the main character, but what we're playing is like one of the supporting characters that had their own personal goal too. It's like when it comes to those games, I feel like you can just pluck any character from those games, and bam, there you go. You got your movie. You know, but we're gonna move over to our transition part. Disappointing part, I guess you love it. Nox is gonna take it away with her single selection, which I have graciously allowed her to only have one. So Nox, what'd you pick?
I picked Silent Hill. I was absolutely devastated. I was so devastated on how they tried to combine two things into one, and it made no fucking sense at all. I wish they would have stuck to like one, and maybe like done a part two, because I think it had consistency. A lot of it. It was kind of weird on some of like the aspects of it, because they tried really hard to stay true to the game, which I know a lot of, you know, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of the video game movies try really hard to either stay within the game, or they go so far-fetched that you're like, I don't know where you went with this.
Yeah. We had this discussion earlier in the month where we looked at Paul W.S. Anderson's take on Mortal Kombat and how it was just loosely the first two games with kind of like the main premise of the first one. I think it's the first two or the first three, but either way, it's something like that with the premise of the first game, just to have more characters. And critics kind of panned it because it felt like it kind of glossed over so much. And then whenever he did Resident Evil, he did his own interesting thing that still kept to the core root of what the Resident Evil franchise was until after Apocalypse, and then everything else was just changed out of whack. So I feel like that's what most games were back then.
Yeah.
Like, I'm more of a Resident Evil fan, and I've never played any of the Silent Hill games, but like, I didn't hate the movies. Like, they seemed kind of scary, and I was like, this is all right, you know, kind of violent, and I like it.
Yeah. I felt like as a horror fan, and I'm a fanatic of playing horror games. So like when I watched this, when I first saw the trailer, everything, I was so excited. I was like, heck yeah, this is the freaking best thing ever. I wonder how they're gonna do it. And so for me, not only am I a horror fan of games, but I love horror movies too. So like having the best of two worlds at the same time, I was so excited. And then when I watched it, I was just kind of like, oh no, I want more. But it was so underrated. It was so bleak that I think that's why it didn't catch the traction that it needed to have. And I was wishing and hoping so hard. You have no idea. But overall, I think if they had, if they didn't, if they didn't combine the two, I think it could have been a really good movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have, I think it would have done really well in the horror genre because, like you said earlier too, like it was just, it has the consistency. It could have been a lot more than it was. So I think that's why I was disappointed that it could have just been more, and they kind of dropped the ball.
Like, I think I heard like when this movie's trying to get made, like the guy who wanted to make it actually like got this video game music in and shot like some short film right to like pitch it to the studio.
Yeah.
And he was able to include the Silent Hill music throughout the movie, right? Like, so it was more of a tribute to the game. Like that's what I like a lot about filmmakers who love the material they're adapting, is they try to like do it justice as much as they can. But like I can see like sometimes like that's not possible. But like pay for effort, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I think their efforts were so there. I see it as a fan, and I think they did fans justice. I think trying to get a new, like the movie crowd in, I just felt like they didn't do as much for that.
Yeah.
But as a fan, I think they did everything, and it was awesome.
Well, I think also too, one of the things about jumping the gun, it's that when most video game fans think of Silent Hill, they think of the sequel's Pyramid Head guy, which was it James? Yeah, James's personal demon. That was supposed to be him, I believe, right? I think that was supposed to be like a symbol of his guilt for what he did to his wife. And I kind of felt like the filmmakers were like, oh, well, we need like the series' figurehead in a sense. Like their mascot. Like when you think, I don't know, to me, what do you guys think is like the mascot of Silent Hill? Other than the town itself shrouded in fog. Like, what is that franchise?
It's Pyramid Head.
Yeah.
Pyramid Head.
Yeah,
and I felt like
someone who's never played the game, I was like, yeah, Pyramid Head. I recognize it from marketing him.
But
that's the thing. Like, even if you've never played a Silent Hill game, you know who Pyramid Head is. Like it's such an iconic design, an iconic character that even people who don't play horror games can recognize who Pyramid Head is. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. To me, it felt like they kind of did have, like Pyramid Head felt shoehorned in. Unfortunately, like we have to have him here for that brand recognition. Mm-hmm. But you don't, without the, because one of the big things about Silent Hill is a lot of it is steeped in symbolism. It's steeped, it's a psychological horror. All the enemies are representative of whatever character's guilts they are carrying with them. So if you don't have, James Sutherland, or you don't have someone who is equivalent to like the guilt that he carried about Pyramid, that would create Pyramid Head, it just feels like you're just having this, it's literally just like putting a neon sign in here, like, oh yes, see, we are making a Silent Hill movie. Yeah. When, like, to me, Silent Hill isn't necessarily about the characters or the monsters. I mean, those are important, but it's about like what they represent to those characters.
Yes. Yeah. I think they dropped the ball a little bit on that because it was rushed. I felt like it was rushed. Mm-hmm. That's what it was. It was super rushed.
It was kind of a short film, if I remember right. It's like 80 minutes, right?
No, apparently I think it was like 2 hours.
2 hours, yeah.
What?
Yeah, but it didn't feel like that. Because when Knox told me that, I was like, there's no way in hell that movie was 2 hours. I looked, I was like, I've seen that movie. Those were movies that me and my mom would watch on a rainy Saturday. Never, ever felt like a 2-hour movie. It always felt like an hour and a half or something. And that was because the pace was like really, really good with it. Even though it was still a slow-paced film, its pacing was really, really good. And I guess this is where we're leaving the disappointment angle, and we're kind of starting to go into the favorites and everything. It's that, like even me, when, like, what was it? When I went to go see Aquaman, the first one, not the shitty second one. I'm seeing my Vudu, or not Vudu, my Roku is advertising that towards me. when people were complaining about the runtime of, oh, it's a 3-hour movie, I was like, I went in there, I didn't feel like 3 hours because it was constantly engaging, and I never once had to look at my phone or whatever and be like, God, like, how long is this? No, it was engaging, and that's the same thing about Silent Hill. It was engaging enough that it fed you enough information to keep you intrigued. That, to me, that movie could have been an extra hour, and I probably would not have cared. It would have been like, let me discover more of this. And to, like, leave Pyramid behind here, I kind of felt like maybe if that movie, maybe Alice Krieg, who was the film's villain, Christabella, I felt like maybe she could have easily had dropped something of when Rose is wondering what the hell that is, and that she could mention maybe some man months ago came across us and this thing just came up. You could have easily have nodded that maybe James is out there somewhere dealing with his own demons in the city. And, you know, because I don't think really Silent Hill ever really had like a year date specific, from my understanding, of when everything started to happen. You know, like when did the James story exactly happen, and then when did I'm forgetting the parents in the first one.
I know it's. I think it's Harry Mason, maybe.
Harry Mason, yeah.
It is.
Because you had Harry in the first one, and then
his daughter was in the third.
Yes, the one that he saved throughout the first one. Which, again, I love that. I love that story, and to me, I think that's a definitive. And as much as people love 2, to me, I was like, no, 1 and 3. Those are like the best stories ever. James is really, really good. It's a very, very good, iconic little story, but 1 and 3 to me were the best ones and everything. I kind of liked 4 for like the stylized of, oh, you're locked in an apartment and your apartment is like you're living hell and everything. And as you progress through the game, like more of the locks, I think it's like at first more of the locks are added, but then the locks start unlocking and everything. So it's kind of like that. But Silent Hill has always been a hit and miss series. After the original trilogy, like it's super hit and miss.
I don't know. I love Silent Hill. Every one of them had its unique, like, I don't know. For me, it was a unique experience all the time, and I love the. One of the reasons why I love Silent Hill, and even the movie now, is the fact that it was the detail that they put in the movie that made me so freaking happy. The music, the soundtrack, and then just like the iconic Pyramid Head. Okay, Roberto Cabaneda. Oh my God!
Is that who's underneath?
Yes. I'm
okay.
sure you've heard of him. He's been. I think he was one of the choreographers in Pompeii, I believe.
Really?
Yes. And the movement that he did for Pyramid is just like iconic, dude. I can't, like, I will always remember that chasing scene where he choked the heck out of that girl. I was like, that's me.
Is that the one where he ripped her skin off?
Yeah, I was like, I remember that.
I know. My mom was like, "Oh shit, this is pretty graphic," because she thought he was gonna cut her head off. You know, he's carrying a big sword, and then he just strips her flesh like in one go, and it's all like Leatherface somewhere in Texas is all like, "Hey, I respect that," you know, like.
Yeah, tossed her like nothing, and then started chasing the fucking company. Oh, dude, that was my favorite scene ever. Oh my God, I was like, oh, this is why I have problems.
we have to like also give props to Laurie Holden as Sybil Shepherd. Like, the best character, did not deserve what the fuck happened to her. I can't remember if she passed away in the first game or not. Like, if she sacrificed herself. I think there is an ending where she does die in the game, but then there's one I think that you can save her if you did something in a specific order.
Okay, is Silent Hill? It's like a purgatory, right? You're dead. When you're there.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're basically dead. There's
like
no
All right.
You're just stuck.
Yeah. But yeah. Looking at the cast, Radha Michelle as Rose, Sean Bean as Christopher, which again, this is one of the earlier films where Sean Bean did not die. Hand clap to him. Laurie Holden, who most of you guys, if you guys don't know her as Sybil, you probably would know her as the character Laurie in Walking Dead. Yeah, I think that was her name.
What-
That
No, wait, I don't think she played Lori.
was she not? No. Laurie was the
Lori was the
sheriff's
wife.
wife, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I hated what happened to her too, but still, like Laurie Holden played like one of the best characters that died way too early in Walking Dead. I think they still could have done more for her, and I felt even more bad for her sister, who continued on, and I think she got eaten too. You have Deborah Kara-Unga as Alyssa's mom, and then last but not least, the wonderful Jodelle Ferdland as Alyssa and Sharon. If you guys do not know this woman, obviously she played the daughter of Rose in Sean Bean. Like she was the child. Instead of her being an infant like in the game, she was like 8, maybe less than 8, maybe a little bit younger. She was somewhere around that age range. And she has been like in horror for so long. She's been on episodes of Supernatural. She did, I don't know if you guys remember The Tall Man with Jessica Biel. It was like a supernatural thriller about these children in this town. Most of these children that disappeared, they're all children from abusive families or from poor families. And the tall man would come to take them away. And you soon find out that this malevolent figure that all these people are freaked out about, he's actually helping them. And then when you find out who the tall man was, I was like, oh my God, that's so ingenious. That's so great. That's a great, I may have to try to find that movie again and write a review on Letterboxd. That's a really, really great, underrated film. But who remembers Kingdom Hospital? Stephen King's Kingdom Hospital. It was on TV, probably 2003-ish. So it's a 21-year-old series. Well, she played the main character little girl in that because the hospital called the Kingdom Hospital was built upon a like a mining scene and everything, where they enslaved children to work, and she was one of them. And then the mines collapsed and everything, and this one little girl gets tortured in a psychiatric facility, and she just pretty much just starts haunting the hospital. And that's like one of her like big roles was in a Stephen King project, like back in 2002, 3-ish. I want to say this was either before or after Rose Red. You guys at least know Rose Red, right? And everything, like the best ghost story. Yeah. Right. You think?
I think I might have seen that one.
Well, like we're really stretching into like early 2000s Stephen King made for TV stuff, which that was all a hit and a miss. But either way, she appeared in there, and then only a few years later, she'd make her appearance in Silent Hill, and she's become, in a sense, a scream queen all on her own, or a horror actress. Whichever you want to put it, scream queen, horror actress. She's like a millennial version of Danielle Harris. It's pretty much what she is. But yeah.
I do know her. I was wondering why I recognized her on freaking Silent Hill. What the heck? Okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, like her face is on the poster with no mouth, so it's like it's kind of hard to like miss that face. But I don't know the director or the writer for Silent Hill, but I still thought that they did a pretty decent job with what they did. Could have been worse. They could have just adapted not Ari. They could have just adapted Silent Hill: The Room. I think that would have been a terrible way to introduce people to the video games.
God, imagine that, Jesus.
But on a low
was
budget,
honestly,
like on a low
Yeah.
budget.
They teased a third movie at the end of the second one, right? With the prison bus.
Which one?
At the end of the second one, they teased the prison bus coming into town.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what's supposed to be from Homecoming?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was
okay.
supposed to be, for Homecoming. Like, just a little tease for it.
I only
but
saw the
absolutely.
sequel once, and I did not like it that essentially they treated Pyramid Head as like a Godzilla figure, like a kaiju, and then like they're fighting this other demonic being, and it's like I don't ever remember Pyramid Head fighting another demonic being whatsoever.
He is the demonic being.
I was about to say, yeah, it's like, it kind of, it followed a little bit more of what the third one was, but at the same time, when it got to that ending, it was like kaiju demonic battle with Hellraiser villain because that's what the villainess looked like. She looked like a Hellraiser Cenobite, you know.
You know which scene always caught my eye and like really made me happy that they put it on there was the armless man. I don't know if y'all remember that scene in Silent Hill. The armless man.
It's
Like it
On
was.
point.
yeah, it's kind of ringing a bell and everything. To me, when I remember monsters, mostly I remember Pyramid Head and I remember the nurses.
It's like the first time that they arrive, pretty much, in Silent Hill.
Okay.
When Rose and Sybil like are there, like
Is this,
they
going through
literally.
the school?
I think
Or-
so, yeah. And then they see that, and they're like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
It's a very interesting, like again the people and the creatures that they brought in there, I think it did the movie some justice, but like I kind of felt like right before it was supposed to hit that winning line, there was something that was kind of a bit of a miss, which is probably why this movie isn't praised as like, oh, it's like one of the big successful video game movies ever made, you know, because it wasn't. Like really, I think most people kind of look at Resident Evil as a somewhat successful one, but the critics panned it. But
$1 billion franchise.
what?
$1 billion franchise.
I mean, like, but
Crossed $1 billion.
when you're gonna adapt something that's a video game, are you really gonna adapt like a one-off video game with no sequels, or are you really gonna adapt something that is franchise worthy?
Well, I mean, obviously franchise worthy.
Yeah,
but, like,
yeah.
I mean,
Silent Hill's got sequels. Like, it's
Which
just-
one?
I don't think it resonated with the audiences very well. You know.
No, I still feel like it was more for the fans. Which,
Yeah.
Like, again, great, but like it just didn't connect with everyone else. And if you didn't play the game and you didn't understand like what was really going on, I think they missed that. And I think that's, like I said, I think a lot of the video game movies are kind of like that. They just miss that little connection
Mm-hmm.
that brings us joy as video game nerds, right? And then, you know, everybody else, like, to share that. It's hard.
But I also
Very-
feel for video games like Silent Hill and everything, just any video game that we play that's been adapted into film, the Mario Brothers, Doom, is that we were able to spend longer in this world. We were able to spend hours, not an hour and a half or two. We were able to spend hours, unless you speedrun. We were able to spend hours and to fall in love with the world a little bit more. And I think that's just kind of what makes it a bit difficult for like some people to click, because there's like, well, I don't get this. And I was like, oh, well, like if you played the game, well, that means I have to spend hours in this world, hours with these characters. And generally that's only related more to television, which I don't think we ever had a television video game. I don't think we ever had. Oh, we did have that one sci-fi series. We had that one sci-fi series that it was supposed to go in tandem. It was
what
like
was it called? I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
You
because
mean for Silent
it
Hill?
was, huh?
You mean a video game for TV series for Silent Hill?
No. So
Just in general.
there was a TV show made that was supposed to be. It was one of the characters in the video game, but I think it was supposed to be Memphis, where it had the big arch, the iconic little arch thing. Your mic went out. Oh, The Last of Us. Okay, that one broke ground. Okay, The Last of Us is one that's the much more
And
recent one.
Arcane.
Yeah.
For like League of, League. And
Arcane
stuff
was
like that.
animated for Netflix, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's also
okay.
one of the biggest hit series too for League, and League.
Oh, okay.
Huge. as a
So
video
more recently, but back then, I think I want to sit there and say it was 2008, maybe the early 2010s. There was a sci-fi video game that was like an MMORPG game that you played.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I
Yes.
just cannot remember the fucking title of it.
It was like it was right at the curtail of when sci-fi really just started producing garbage television, because that was the last
Yeah.
great one and everything. Because like when we
Yeah,
did
sounds
our
cool.
TV talks with Haven, I was like, to me Haven was like the last great series, but this one kind of came right towards the end of Haven. It's kicking me in the ass that I do not know it, but it's a sci-fi alien drama, because it was supposed to be kind of like, I guess you kind of call it like a Fallout kind of thing. It was like a post-apocalyptic kind of thing, but there were people that lived in harmony with all these different alien races, and they actually dealt with like actual real world problems. And it's pissing me off that I don't know what the hell it is.
Yeah,
But
I'm
Tom,
drawing a blank. But I
yeah,
mean, Resident Evil had a TV series on Netflix for 10 episodes,
yeah, but that wasn't
and
good.
that sucked. That was
Oh,
awful.
The best person in that was
Yeah,
Lance
so-
Reddick. Lance Reddick was
Yeah.
like the best person in there. You know,
But
like
he played the character all, and like he shouldn't have been cast as that character. Like, it's
No.
just,
yeah, but it makes sense though that like, you know, Wesker did like a lot of bio cloning genetic experiments, so it could have like you could have possibly kind of believed it as like, even though there were like a lot of people that sit there and said that essentially Wesker was like a Nazi, so like why would he do that? And it's all like, well,
Yeah,
if he
he's
wants
a-
to
he's
hide
a-
out, if he wants to hide out, it's like people are gonna look for a red eye that used to be a blue eye Nazi looking guy. It's like, how are you gonna change your look
No.
so no one knows who the fuck you are? You're gonna
they
switch completely.
changed it so his original character was a black man and he looked like Blade.
Yeah,
Like that's what they changed it. They set the TV show in the world of the video games, and they referenced the video games like, oh, Wesker died in a volcano. That happened in Resident Evil
Yeah.
5. Like it was just terrible. I hated it. Ugh.
it had its chance, but yeah, I guess like now like we think about it, there have been some that are a big miss, and then some like The Last of Us and Arcane, you know, that you know, sometimes you got to go through those debts. You have to have your Super Mario Brothers before you have, and this is my transition to Tommy.
Also, before we begin, I found it. Defiance. That was the one.
Defiance, that's what it's called.
That's what it was called. Okay, I was sitting here. I'm like, man, why does it sound so
right.
familiar?
Yeah. All right. So Tommy now can the only video game that has been both a success to critics, to the fans, and was a box office smash hit.
Yes, Detective Pikachu. So, with this movie, I love this movie to death. And I feel like I can talk overall, like what I feel like this movie has done for like video game movies overall. Because, admittedly, like this definitely was I feel like one of the big turning points in video game movies, and the fact that, to the public, video game movies now felt a lot more viable to watch as opposed to like, because admittedly, like a lot of the video game movies we've already talked about, like we've talked about how they've had problems reaching a broader audience, and whether that's due to the fact that gaming has become far more acceptable as a hobby, or far more like engaging with a broader audience, or the fact that now we're getting far more quality movies made. But I feel like Detective Pikachu was definitely the catalyst for, now we have movies like the Sonic the Hedgehog movies and the Super Mario Bros. Movie. I feel like this movie was just so good overall. The big horror I felt, and it is kind of there in some aspects, was when you're making this live action Pokemon movie, like how are you going to make it feel like the Pokemon are not so uncanny valley? And I think the only thing that the closest one it does get to is Mr. Mime, but I feel like with Mr. Mime, they definitely just leaned into it and made that the gag. But overall, like this movie, I feel like has just a really good charm to it, and making it like definitely accessible to a lot of kids in particular. Because if we're being honest, like that's going to be a very good market for something like Pokemon. Like that's going to be like first and foremost the market they're going to make it to. Just make a really good family movie that parents are going to want to see. And now that people like us who maybe have grown up with Pokemon, people our age are starting to grow up and have kids. It makes it feel like this is the perfect time for movies like this.
Yeah.
But I just
As a
love.
parent.
Not yet. None of us are parents yet, I believe.
Yeah.
Not to my knowledge. I
But,
don't know any little Gothics running around.
But it's the fact that we're starting to get to that age where there are people our age who are parents.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're in that demographic. But the movie itself, I just thought the acting in the movie, the writing, it was all very charming. I mean, having Ryan Reynolds in here, like Ryan Reynolds is always such a charismatic force in anything he's in, that you can't help but love his character, especially like post like especially like going into the 2010s, like it felt like Ryan Reynolds could very rarely do any wrong,
Yep.
and that was just perfect casting there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the battles in the movie felt so good, and it felt refreshing to. And I think a lot more video game movies do need to do this, which is, don't just strictly adapt from the games, but create an original story that feels like it would fit in to the kind of the series overall, and the one or the kind of the vibe of the series.
Yeah.
That's
There's one thing
very
I
much
want
what
to.
I.
There's one thing I really want to add to that is that when we look back then, like when the Super Mario Brothers movie did come out back in 1993, Mario has not really. I don't think Mario had been around for not even 10 years. I think he was like passing like his 5 year
Yeah,
and everything. So I think what makes films like this, like Detective Pikachu and the Super Mario Brothers movie, also a huge success is that there's so much to draw on to in your original story to reference in other games. You have like all these different games, you have all these different things that you can reference. Like, Super Mario Brothers, you had like the weird star that was like so nihilistic but so cute at the same time. You had like
Oh
those
yeah,
little moments that you could write in there, and it's like, oh, here's for the gamers out there too, in a very funny way of, yeah, it's not really like that in the game, but here's a little nod that we have this little small minute character. But like even in Pokemon, it's like you've had like what, this has been something since 1990, maybe 94,
93. Yeah, I think it was
93.
93.
Yeah,
93
and
is I think when it originally came out in Japan. And we're also talking again, Pokemon is, I believe, inarguably the biggest franchise of anything in general. Like, it makes the most money. Pokemon is just a license to print money at this point. And what I really enjoy, so that's one thing. Like, you have, so I think given that, I don't think Nintendo was going to let this movie fail. Like,
Oh, yeah.
that's why you have such a great quality to it. And you see things like the Pokemon battles I thought were great. And I like this interesting tale of this spin on it where it's just like, you're following a Pokemon story that isn't just the usual, we're going to go collect the gems to be the best Pokemon trainer ever. It's
yeah,
a story. And I think this is what a lot of these like really big media franchises that involve these massive worlds need to do, is just like tell stories that you don't normally see. Detective Pikachu, talk about life outside of wanting to be the best trainer, or
Yeah.
like any of these, like on a small tangent. I hope that's what they do with the Warhammer series, because that's a series you can do like anything with. You can do any sort of genre with it, and I want to see more like big franchises sort of peek out into that, because you can do all these different genres with something like Pokemon. And I think that's what I found very refreshing about it, is it was able to be a self-contained movie and tell a story that, to my knowledge, I don't know how much it relies on the Detective Pikachu game. I never got around to playing it. I would want to eventually go back and play it. But it definitely felt like this is a story that a lot of audiences were able to get into, like, even if you never really played Pokemon. But again, Pokemon is just one of those where such iconic franchises that everyone can recognize a Pokemon just on the street. Like I see all the time. Like so with my kids at the school I teach, some of them don't actually play Pokemon, but a lot of them have Pokemon stickers on their laptops. It's become just a massive cultural force, and to see just in general a video game movie finally like get a lot of acclaim. And it's not like it was I don't think it was like a big awards darling or anything, but
no,
see a movie
but
that
it was just widely received very, very well by everyone.
I mean, it only had a production budget of 150 million, and it made like 450 million dollars.
Yeah.
But I also think too, what helps Pokemon as a franchise, how many animated movies did they make? They started back in 1999 with Mewtwo, with Pokemon the movie, and as far as I know, they're still making more animated films. They do so many within every generation.
Yeah, and it's the fact that, like, I think that's also one thing is, we have the Pokemon anime that's been going on forever. Like, it's been the same continuous story for over 20 years. But, so a lot of people, it would be very hard to just do a live action movie based on that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like trying to get somebody into comic books with that, with all of this like decades
Yeah.
backstory to understand.
Like
Whereas,
DC.
like you don't really like, and I think that also goes to the strength of Pokemon. You don't really need to explain Pokemon all that much to somebody. That's the one thing you can kind of. It's a very simple franchise to kind of understand, to the point like it's just kind of it's that simplicity has been beamed on to death. But it's one thing like you don't need to go into great detail explaining what Pokemon is to people.
Mm-hmm.
Like a majority of the audience can just be like, oh, these are basically like cute little animals that people keep around with them. Like that's all the exposition you need for Pokemon.
Yeah.
So you can focus on an actual story in the world, and you can focus your exposition on like the characters' backstories, what's going on with them, what do they need, or what do they do, So that's one of the big strengths I think really helped out Pokemon in this matter, because again, we talked about all these other movies. Like, I think this is the first time because a lot of we talk about these history of video game movies, and we talk about all these disappointment ones because like a lot of them don't, it's trying to get a new audience into something that has maybe some kind of history. I mean, I don't imagine most video games are getting these other big media adaptations without having at least 5 years of history to understand. And
Yeah.
you got to explain that to a new audience. That's going to be a big barrier to entry to getting a lot of people into your movie or your show or anything like that.
This is what's also weird. It's like Pokemon is the only franchise that exercises this a lot with its movies. Regardless if you watch live action or animated. But like Nintendo, why hasn't Nintendo thought about doing this stuff? They did back in the 90s when they did like the late 80s, early 90s when they did the Mario show. And then in the 90s, you had the Sonic the Hedgehog Underground, the Sonic the Hedgehog TV show. So what happened to these companies to where it's all like, look, it's cheaper to probably produce a movie compared to, like, regardless if it's animated or live action, it's cheaper to do that. And you guys have spent so many years working on not just doing your video games and their storylines and their worlds, but you also have these other shows that, have so much story to do that really you can just pluck one storyline out and just kind of maybe like chop it a little bit, kind of take a little bit of the excess off. Bam, there's your movie, right there. So my thing is, why hasn't because I don't want to say solely Nintendo, because it's Game Freak that owns Pokemon, right? Or is it just them that does the actual making of the game, but Nintendo is just the publisher?
I think they make the mainline games.
Yeah, they make the mainline games, and then there's also the Pokemon Company now. So I think Nintendo, like, overall, like, is just kind of helps fund them and does see a lot of the profit from it. But it's also the fact that, like, you got a lot of hands in the Pokemon pie.
Yeah,
you got all these different hands. I think that's actually just kind of a business model Nintendo's been doing overall, because like that's kind of the same deal with Kirby and Smash Bros. They're owned by.
Oh, that's right. I forgot Kirby had a TV show too.
Yeah, but the games are owned by or made by a separate company, but they're under the Nintendo umbrella.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of that kind of. It's a lot of those things, and I think going to your question when we talk about like why video games have not historically been made well for movies. Again, you kind of touched on it earlier. We have these hours and hours that we invest in these games. It's very hard to craft a much more succinct, tight, like maybe 2.5 hour experience out of a single video game nowadays without like having to cut important bits. I think like that's why I think historically we've seen a lot better success out of video game TV shows than we have movies. We have shows like, especially a lot of these more prestige drama shows. We're talking about The Witcher. We're talking about Last of Us. They're able to invest the time to tell these stories, and It's just a lot harder to do that with, when you have a time budget of like,
Yeah.
if you're lucky, 2 hours.
Yeah. But also adding, since I guess Super Mario Brothers is such a big success, like, I definitely know the next one's going to be Donkey Kong. That's probably like the next one in the Super Smash Bros. Universe. But I would think Kirby would transition very well to not live action. Oh god, that would be disturbing. Uh, but like a Kirby movie, I mean, like, you can't sit there and say that a movie like that can't exist when you have Pixar stuff like Wall-E. That, it is a non-vocal thing. And then also too, children love to eat, children love food, so to see some giant pink thing just suck up some fire duck and then bam, like, it has fire hair, and it's like, I think that's one thing that Nintendo is definitely sleeping on, and I really hope that they have in their Super Smash Bros. Universe, it's all like, oh, don't worry, Kirby's coming. It's like, I think that would probably be the cuter one and the more touching story, because if they do it like how Pixar does really well with non-vocal characters and everything, and it's like watching a silent film, and they can make it like so on the dot of like a child could understand a character like that and everything. So let's hope for a Kirby movie pretty soon.
You also got to give props to Nintendo for not wanting to churn out a movie every year.
Yeah,
even if it's successful.
Unlike DC and Marvel.
Like, the movies have to, like, complement the IP that they're being based off of. So if they don't feel like they do that, I'd rather them not do it at all. So, like, yeah, I'd like to see more Detective Pikachu kind of stuff. Like, I grew up loving the games, and I think the last game I played was, like, Sword and Shield, and I still haven't played the new ones yet. But, yeah, I mean, I'd like to see more.
I'd like to see a Pal World movie now.
Let's not get into that.
I don't even think we
I
need
know
to get
so
into
little
that.
about that.
Nox gifted me the game, so we're playing that Wednesday.
God, I do want to pick it up at some point.
If she has the time today, then she'll easily walk me through Pal World and everything. But yeah, no. After seeing a video clip of a bunch of fluff butts with freaking M16 guns just firing, I'm all like, what in the, like, what is this? It's so cute, but they're so hyper violent.
Some of the questions that I see on Reddit for it, they're like, man, I thought this was going somewhere else, and then I see Pal World.
But yeah, like, when going back to Detective Pikachu and the things that it's done and the doors that it's opening, I do give props to Game Freak, Nintendo, for at least working out that storytelling muscle, and not just in one format of video game, but in the TV shows and the numerous ones. Because 3 years ago, Ash just finally wrapped up his Pokemon journey.
Yeah, you became.
They finally wrapped up Ash's story, and they're doing something I never thought we would see, which is do an entirely new set of characters.
Oh, really? Nice. Well,
yeah,
this is what Ash has been doing the journey since 96.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah, 96, and probably about, if it wrapped up about 3 years ago, that's like 15 years? Holy shit. Took 15 years for him to be the best Pokemon master. And in the video game, I could do that in about 8 hours. Like,
I think it's honestly closer to 20.
Is it?
Let's see. Yeah, they wrapped up Ashes in 2022, actually. So the first one was 97 in Japan. No, actually, it was originally aired in 97, and then went to, so originally 97, and they ended it in 23.
Oh, nice. But yeah, so like, with that, like, they flex it through their animated movies, their animated TV shows, their video games. They have so much. I think probably out of all of, I think it even outbeats Mario of history, lore, storytelling. It outbeats it. And I think that's possibly why this was such a great success. It's that if they definitely knew who to put it in the right hands, which I did not write down the screenwriter for this because I only had so much space on this notepad, but Rob Letterman, kudos to him for directing. I I can't figure out who the writer is at the moment, but yeah, that was a lot of lore to learn just to create an original story that it still could exist in the Pokemon world. We've lasted pretty damn long, so we're actually going to wrap up with the final film, which oddly enough, when I sat there and saw it on there, I was all like, "Oh God, what has Chris been smoking?" So, Chris, take it away. You're the final movie for today.
Oh, really? Oh, man, there's so much pressure.
Yes, it is. Especially after Pokemon. I felt like we should have swapped.
Man, when you asked me for this list, I was like, oh, crap, this is the worst question ever. What's my favorite and most, like, hated, like, video game adaptation? I didn't know what to pick. I really didn't. Because, like, it's just, there's so many different, like, reasons to weigh something, and so I kind of just went with Uncharted because like it's the one I hate the least. It's not necessarily my favorite, but like I love the Uncharted games, and when this movie came out, like it'd been so long that we were waiting for this freaking movie to come out. Like there was so many cast changes and directors turnovers, and like when it finally came out and like you saw all the set pieces from the games and like the characters being brought to life, and I was just like, it's not a terrible adventure movie. It's kind of a bad Uncharted movie, but like it's not a terrible adventure movie. But
I remember seeing this, but at the same time, I do not remember anything of what the movie was about.
Yeah.
It was just one of those, and it's like, oh, that's a bad story. It's like, oh, I saw it. What's it about? Come to think of it, I don't know. It's like
just like these thieves like trying to find this hidden treasure from this lost pirate, and like it wasn't terrible. I didn't hate it, you know, undyingly.
Yeah, it didn't really sit there seem like it was like, oh my God, I need this movie in my life, because it's like a lot of people have already sat there said that Uncharted is like the modern day Indiana Jones, but you could finally do the adventure. And I am deeply saddened in the entirety of this video game franchise, they did not give you the option to somewhere along the lines of, let's give Nathan a whip for one scene. Just the kind of reference of like, look, we all like, know that you guys...
Throws it away.
Yeah, you can even do something like that where like, you know, maybe there's some dude with a sword and... You know, it's in the hallway. He just picked the sword up off the freaking wall, and Nathan looks, and he grabs it, and he's like, this ain't gonna work, and like just throws it and runs. Like, you could have done something to the point where it could have been a nod towards. So when I heard about this, it's all like, oh, so it's young Indiana Jones. That's pretty much it. And they did a TV show in the 90s about that, which I think was like a lukewarm reception.
It was young Indiana Jones is like a kids show kind of. Like I just watched the first few episodes of that. I'm like, this night needs little episodes.
How is Sean Patrick Flannery? That's the only thing I know about the series was.
I mean, it's fine so far. I'm still picking it up, but
okay.
Yeah, despite the miscast, like Mark Wahlberg never should have been Sully.
Yeah.
I like
that was.
Yeah.
I felt.
Yeah.
They had him on contract, and they're like, oh, we got to use Mark. I'm like, yeah, all right, yeah, you throw him as Sully. He's the big name, and he'll be like a major part of the story. But like, I like Tom Holland. I think like he can grow into a nice Nathan Drake, and eventually. But I mean, yeah, I really wish this was just like the next Indiana Jones, and it didn't end up being that. But I think it's still a fine, serviceable Uncharted story.
I think the only casting outside of Holland's Nathan Drake, because I think he does a decent Drake. Antonio Banderas is Santiago. Who'd have thought casting him as a villain, and it worked very, very well. He played it with all the cheese.
Halfway through the film.
Well, okay, yeah, but still, he played it with enough cheese. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
We definitely got robbed with that.
But there are some of these people I don't even recall. Sophia Ali as Chloe Fraser. She had a connection to Sully. Which one was Chloe Fraser? It's been a while since I played.
She's a supporting character in the games. Like she's an old flame of Nathan Drake's that they introduced in the second game, and she's kind of backstabs him sometimes, but she's still kind of like on his side, like a good anti-hero.
Did she do the
character.
Uncharted spinoff where it was the two women from the franchise? I don't think it was Ellie, but I
Yeah.
think it was like Nathan's kid.
I think so. Was that how
didn't
they
play that one then.
portrayed it?
I don't
seeing
remember
that.
too well, but I do remember that after the Uncharted 4, which was the final Drake story, they released another game which was a spinoff, and I think it's Chloe Fraser that played the co-lead, because she was like, I think, like one of the players that you played with and everything. But there was a female duo, and I don't remember too much of that game. I don't think it was bombed or anything, but I think a lot of people are all like, it was an Uncharted game, we were expecting another Nathan Drake adventure, but we got these characters instead that I guess they tried to flesh out a little bit more, and maybe it just didn't do well enough to get a sequel. And then there's Rudy Penko as Sam Drake. Now, I remember this clashes with the game because Nathan hasn't seen his brother in years. And it was what made, I think, the fourth game so important was, I think in the fourth one, that's when they started exploring Nathan's older brother, who got him into this whole, into this whole career field of being, I guess, a Tomb Raider. That's another video game nod.
Treasure hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Treasure, but I mean, the movie kind of took more inspiration from the third game, which showed like how Sully and Nathan met.
Yeah.
Like Sully met him like as he was like a street rat or something. He took him in, and he's like, "Yeah, you got potential, kid." And yeah, I mean, like they took stuff that made sense, but like they just, I don't think the story was entirely right for what they were going for.
Yeah. Would you really offer this film to a casual moviegoer? Like would you sit there and think, oh, they're gonna enjoy this? Because we all know the video game community, we dodge that.
I think people will enjoy it if they haven't played the games. I think it's just an okay action movie. Like, it's not Indiana Jones top quality stuff, but there's still cool stuff in it. There's still the cool helicopters, pirate ships flying at the end, into the climactic battle and stuff, and sword fights and stuff. That stuff felt like an Uncharted game right there.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see that a lot, and that's more Uncharted, and they get away with some treasure, I think. But,
did this film also have supernatural elements like the games did?
No. But also, the supernatural elements.
Well, I mean, like in the first game, you were looking for something, and there was like a poison mist, or it was some kind of mist, and it kind of made people look dead, but it made them feral. So that was kind of like where you got your mummies or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it was a kind of supernatural thing, but it wasn't. And then
each game has you find like an old ancient city, and there's something like supernatural about what's going on, but I think it's more based in set in real world stuff.
Yeah,
I think
it stepped on that line between both. Like, there was a supernatural explanation, but also at the same time, there was a scientific explanation. But you could still look at it as, well, that's not natural. That's why it's buried down here. Like, it's not natural. Like, I think in the third one, wasn't that the one with the immortal tree? Like, I'm thinking that's not a natural tree. Like, you know,
they found like the Atlantis of the Sahara, and it was like, I remember more hallucinogenic dusts or something.
Then I could be thinking of the second one then, because I remember the bad guy who was a brute. He was like covered in this shit, and like he was like almost impossible to kill. Yeah, you know, but still, like, in a sense, Indiana Jones always kind of did that. Like, I think Temple of the Doom took a step away from the supernatural stuff, but when you look at the first one, the Ark of the Covenant, like, you had spirits come out and kill every Nazi, you know?
Yeah.
And then when you had in The Last Crusade, you had where you were looking for the Holy Grail, and apparently anyone that drinks from that cup, they just drop magically dead and everything. And, like, you didn't see it get poisoned, but at the same time, it's like, is there something lined inside the cup, you know? But also, too, you had an Arthurian legend dude right here who's all like,
and someone rapidly ages in front of you and turns into dust, and
you know, so it stepped on both heels.
I think it was kind of smart for them not to do like something like that in the very first movie to introduce the characters, because like you don't want too many comparisons to Indiana Jones. But I
Yeah.
also wish this was like more faithful to the characters and better casting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would you have cast as Sully? This goes for everyone. Who would you have cast as Sully for
Oh
this?
shit.
Oh
Okay.
man.
They did a short film with Nathan Fillion and
The actor who played the real Sully?
not the real Sully, but the guy who was in Avatar, the bad guy, the military general dude.
Uh, Was it the dude who also did Don't Breathe? That like
Yes, they did
him
short
as a
fan film
Sully?
with him. Yeah, he was great.
It worked.
Let's see. Yeah,
Interesting.
it was short, but like it worked. I mean, let's see here. Trying to pull it up.
Quadrich? I can't remember the actor's name. I have no clue.
Stephen Lang.
Stephen Lang. Interesting.
He was more Sully than Mark Wahlberg ever was.
Well, I mean, I even like that even in the movie whenever they had the fake mustaches and they had the whole argument. It was like, well, yours doesn't look real either. And his is like the mustache from the game. And it's like, oh, okay. So they did, they kind of explained it. But then again, seeing Mark Wahlberg with facial hair is weird. You know, he's forever known as Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch look. Like, that's just what, you know,
Aw.
the clean shaven. I would have gone with, the guy who played Hopper on Stranger Things, because I think he physically actually has like the top heavy build. All he has to do is have a little bit of a stomach, and he could have already had the mustache, and bam, there's Sully. It's just he wouldn't have that he doesn't have that accent, you know, that voice or whatever. I can't do Sully, but you know, there is that voice that then becomes the issue because that's such an iconic voice, you know. You generally see that with like a lot of older actors like John Huston and everything, which to me that's who I think of. If you don't know John Huston, he was the villain in Chinatown, you know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, him. So like, I think of old actors like that. Like there's not that many modern day actors, I believe. You know, The Rock could even do this. You know.
I mean, for
I have one. But
You
yeah.
have one?
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Is it William Daff? Is it William Daff Defoe? How do you say his
Defoe.
name?
Willem Dafoe.
Defoe.
William
Yeah.
Defoe.
Defoe.
I'm gonna call him that
Okay,
forever. I
I
love
think he could have
Defoe.
been like that cheeky side of Sully, you know? Yeah.
Yeah,
he could've-
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he would play that pretty well, the little cheeky side, just because of how he is. Also, he looks great with the mustache. Okay, he fits it. That's just me. That's the way he looks.
I saw like it was like a Hollywood Reporter interview where they had him where he had like the whole little mustache. Like it was a little bit longer than Sully's and everything, and people are like, what's with the mustache? He's like, yeah, like I'm trying it out, it's really good and everything. And you're like, is there like any role specific? Nah, I just decided one day to just grow it out. And it's like, it's a good mustache, it's very thick and everything. And you know, I wish I could have a mustache like that where I can just, but like, you
It's
know,
just like a old Western mustache.
that's where mine kind of goes into. It's like, because like part of it also goes up here, so if I let it grow out, all I need is that wax and I can look like Val Kilmer, it's Doc Holliday in Tombstone.
Oh yeah.
No mustache. Oh my god, jelly. But yeah, who would you go for, Tommy?
That's tough. I'll admit, Uncharted was like one of those games that I missed out on, so I don't have a very good connection with the characters. But let me think. I don't know. That's tough because you know I think Uncharted. Yeah, I'm automatically thinking Indiana Jones. So who would be his Sean Connery to Nathan Drake's Harrison Ford? That's a tough read, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because I feel like looking at it, I don't even think Tom Holland would have been that great of a. I mean, I don't doubt that Tom Holland did a good performance as Nathan Drake, but I don't see, you know, Tom Holland just has that perpetual baby face, so it makes it hard to picture him as this rugged, you know, this rugged treasure hunter, you know, like.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like maybe if they made this movie like maybe 10 years ago, I feel like maybe Mark Wahlberg would have been better as Nathan.
Yeah, because he has the smart ass chops. You know,
Yeah.
Nathan was a big smartass. And it's kind of hard to really believe. Like, Tom Holland's as a smartass for Spider-Man, that's a little bit more believable. Because of, like, the little quick whips. But, like, Nathan had some shit that, like, it would be dumb, the way how he said it. And he's like, oh, it was funnier in my head the first time I thought about it. And people could kind of look at him, and it's like...
Because my understanding of Nathan Drake is he's just a big meathead.
He's like Ryan Reynolds. He's in Indiana Jones. Ryan Reynolds. That's
Ryan
pretty
Reynolds-y.
much.
Yeah. But like, wouldn't it be funny if Harrison Ford was cast as Sully?
Oh my
You know what? I could believe
Actually,
that too. Yeah.
That I could see that. No,
Yeah.
now that you say that, that would have been fucking brilliant casting.
Back in my
honestly.
day, I punched a couple of Nazis while going after the Ark Covenant. Like.
I've been chased by the Russians and survived a nuclear bomb, kid. No. Don't
Oh
get me
my
started.
god.
It's all like, so, yeah, I can't do that anymore, but you know what I can do? I can bring orphans and everything into my line of work and everything. It's all like, remind me just like your brother. And it's all like, what? And it's like, ah, shit. Okay, you weren't supposed to figure that out until 24, like, and then, of course, they botched that, but I think we hit the best of Uncharted and everything.
I think my ideal casting, though, would be Dylan O'Brien from Love and Monsters. Hi, Polly.
Now I have to drop a lower third for her, too, for popping in.
It's like mysterious girl. But Dylan
To be fair, he's
O'Brien
popping in
as
all the time.
Dylan O'Brien.
Nathan Drake.
Yeah, because
Dylan O'Brien,
know
if
me.
you haven't seen it, he's a great actor. He's like he nailed it in Love and Monsters, and I saw a little fan concept of Sully as William Hurt, who died a few years ago, I think.
Yeah.
But, like,
Yeah.
He, I imagine.
Or was that John
He
Hurt?
would have been great.
No, it was William.
John Hurt.
John
Okay.
Hurt died years before him. Yes,
John
that
Hurt.
is Paulette, sis.
I know who that is. I think totally different make physique and stuff.
I could see this. Wasn't
Will Hurt
he?
and Dylan Bryan.
He was in Teen Wolf, but wasn't he also in 4? The number 4? He looks like one of the kids that was in that one.
I know he was an American Assassin, and like
Maybe
I
that's
think
where
this
I'm
kid
thinking.
has range. I think like in a few years we're gonna be hearing a lot more about Dylan O'Brien in a few years.
He
And
definitely
people
also
hate
gives me like 90s what is it like 90s not teen role model, but like heartthrob, 90s heartthrob. He kind of has like that 90s heartthrob thing, which again Mark Wahlberg had that too, and so did Leo, but like there's only so many people that could fit that role for Nathan. And what's funny enough is, to me, when I think of Nathan Drake, I do think of Nathan Fillion. It looks almost exactly like him. They made that, specific, and it's sad that Nathan's a little too old to like do that, Now maybe if they did an Uncharted film that was a sequel to the movies and everything, and maybe he was the new Sully kind of character, and it's all like, you could have easily did his kid, or there could be like this one kid that's an orphan. It's like, I want to join you. I was like, hell no, kid. It's all like, I knew this one guy, great dude. He just took a bunch of orphans off the street, and like we became treasure hunters. We like saw everything. We lived the perfect life, but at the same time, I would never put an orphan child in that point of view. Well, the kid goes and does it. It's like, God damn it. And you could see Nathan Fillion like, I used to catch up to these kids, You could do something like that where it plays with the meta humor of the game. And, you could do something like that. Like, I know that would strictly only be a fan's thing, because the modern movie-going audience would be so lost, because it's like you're missing 4 years of history, or 4 gaming histories, 4 games and all that lore. And it's like, and we're seeing... This is Nathan Drake old in the Sully position with a brand new treasure hunter orphan. This is worse as Batman. It's like Sully's Batman. He's like, I'm adopting all these little orphans so that they can all but I think we hit our mark today. Welcome in, Loco Guy 87. We are hitting our mark today. We're almost at the hour and a half thing. I don't want to keep Knox too much away from work. But I want to sit there. I want to thank Nox here. Ethereal, do go follow her at her socials. Nox, what's your socials?
It is twitch.tv Nox_ethereal. And then pretty much everything else is that, honestly. So TikTok, Twitter,
Easy branding.
yeah, easy, very easy brand.
If you guys love the gremlin energy here, because Nox has played Fortnite with me, she plays multiple games with me. She may play Power World with me on Wednesday. You know, she's the best gremlin energy. She's the best person to go to. Up top here, we got. I can never say your freaking internet name.
For my handle, MHGunpay, it's on everything here. So Twitch, whenever I decide to bring that back, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all that, Twitter, all that good stuff.
He's also too. He's our panel veteran. He's appeared in every single panel that we've done. So as much as who's like the Roastmaster General? Wasn't that like
Jeff Ross?
Jeff Ross. So he's our Jeff Ross here. You know, just a little less offensive. And then off over here in this corner right here is my Cinemalley co-host Chris Cup. Chris, where can they find you on the socials?
I suck at socials, but just look up Zealous Slacker if you're interested.
Zealous Slacker on Instagram. I think that's the only thing he
Instagram and
plugs.
Twitter. I have a Twitter. I go on maybe.
It's called
never,
X.
but-
Stop calling it
yeah.
Twitter. Twitter
No,
died years
I think
ago.
Twitter.com, it goes to X.
Oh my god. But
Yeah, Instagram. I have a YouTube, but I don't really post on that. So yeah.
yeah. But thank you guys again for watching. Next month, we're actually going to do something a little different for the panels. So we're actually going to have like an open chat for the Discord on Twitch while we put together Kevin Smith movie posters in puzzle form. So we're going to do like, it's something a little different. People can come in, they can talk about their favorite Kevin Smith movies and bounce. We'll be covering Clerks, Dogma, Mallrats, pretty much the whole Clerks trilogy. I still haven't seen the third one. Red State, everything that he pretty much did. We can even talk about...
Wendy.
Huh?
Tusk.
Make sure you tell Paulette said hi. Oh, Paulette, hi. There you go.
Yeah, he did. He told me.
With that being said, folks, I know my sister is a fucking drag. We'll see you guys all later.